Welcome to episode 22 of the Melton True Blue podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Braxton Brown. Braxton, I know you've been around trucking for, around 9 years or so. Is that right? Well,
Yes,
man,
sir.
I appreciate you joining me today. I want you to go ahead and do kind of an introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know it's been a little while since you got into trucking, man, but tell us how you kind of got where you are today.
Oh, absolutely. So I'm Braxton Brown. I'm 31 years of age. And what got me into trucking was my father. So he drove for about 2 years and decided he wanted to train me and be a team driver. I gave in to him pressing on me about it. And fast forward, here we are.
So it's in your blood.
Needless to say.
Yeah, it happens a lot. My dad was a truck driver. My father-in-law's a truck driver. I've been around it myself, and a lot of times that's how we find ourselves coming to the industry. So, you've been with Melton for about a year. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
A total of 9 years as a driver so far.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I know it's been a minute, man, but think back and talk to us about what did that process look like getting into trucking? What was the training process to kind of get started in trucking? And then was there follow-on training to kind of get in the truck and go out there and start doing the job?
So I went through a CDL school in 2016. And it was about a month-long process, back when CDL schools, they were expensive back then, but they weren't as god-awful as they are today.
Yeah.
Well, after I got my CDL, my doubles endorsement, I called around to companies for about a couple of days and stumbled upon a FedEx contractor. Their training was a little, to the point, basically, so many hours being observed. Pretty much it was a many months long process.
Awesome.
So
So eventually found your way to flatbed, right? How's that experience? Kind of going from some of that drive-in or some of the doubles that you were doing in the past to jumping into flatbed now.
So truthfully and honestly, I should have started flatbed from the jump. And at the same time, the reason why I didn't was so my father could tell people he trained me. But there was always this nostalgia thing with flatbed. And since I've been here, like as I was actually, let's back up a second. When I actually was looking to start flatbed in my, about my 8th year of driving, I just said I'm not getting any younger. I'm at the point where I'm kind of jaded to FedEx. I'm kind of bitter to it.
Right.
And I just went, enough's enough. When you do what there is to do at a place like FedEx, there's not many ladders you can climb. So come here and I feel, feel great. I feel appreciated. I go from a sub entity to this.
Yeah. So you're ready for a new challenge. You got
Yeah.
here, you kind of got through that training process and, figured out how, to secure that flatbed load, how to tarp that flatbed load. What's been the biggest learning curve going from that type of driving to flatbed for you?
So team driving, you don't really worry so much about your hours, especially with what I was doing. I was home on weekends. So that kind of stuff, I guess you can say didn't matter.
Mm.
Well, I come here and there's many things I've learned, like even the Smith system even.
Right.
So basically Melton in general has actually helped me become a better driver. And it shows.
Right. When you say better, you're talking about a more safe driver?
Yeah, like I'm more aware
Okay.
of my surroundings. I don't feel as pressed for time because that's how aggressive drivers are formed is when they feel pressed. So I can say this company's actually helped me mature a lot.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. That's something that, always stuck in my head, even through my CDL training days is no matter what's happening going on around you, you never get in a hurry because once you get in a hurry, that's typically when everything's happening to go wrong. Right.
Yep.
So been flatbed driving for about a year now. So you've done some travel now. Did you do over the road driving before coming to Melton?
So I was, excuse me, I could go anywhere. It would either be New Jersey, California, Portland, Oregon. So about the same. The only difference is I would return back home a few days later.
So you've been traveling now, right? You spend how long do you typically spend out on the road here with Melton?
Anywhere between 3 to 8 weeks.
Whew, 3 to 8 weeks. You like to get out there and run, huh?
Oh yeah, it's just something I'm used to, and my girlfriend has also accepted it, and I feel blessed that she's supportive.
Yeah,
So I get addicted to miles at that point.
right. Like
So
that money, right? So getting out there and traveling across the U.S. here, is there some areas that you've learned that you really like? Or there's some areas that you'd prefer to stay away with, man? What's your mindset?
so I'll go ahead and start with the ones I want to stay away from. Northeast coast.
Yeah.
Not a good place for us to be. It's a cluster, and they're not appreciative of us up there
Okay.
in some of the areas closer to the ocean. Pacific Northwest is by far my favorite. I'm willing to drive through California. California doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And, also with me living in places like the Dakotas for a minute, I can handle the winter.
Right.
So just wish I had a stick shift, but I can still handle it.
Yeah. Some pretty scenery out there in the Pacific Northwest for sure. You got challenges and some really cool things no matter where you go. You just kind of got to learn the good with the bad, right? Tell us what a day in the life looks like for you, man. What is what time do you typically start? What do you prefer to drive during day or night?
So I like to be an early AM guy because I like to be off the road by 4. So that way there's certainty with truck parking.
Right.
So I'd like to wake up about an hour or two before my 10 hours up. That way, get up, excuse me, check, just look around, see if I'm missing anything. Then I'll go in, do a little bit of shopping, get my breakfast, and then get the caffeine in my system. Because the object of the game for me is to get my load early in the day or deliver early, right at open. And that's the one thing I can say I've truly gotten better at. Because when I first started, I could get up early, but securing loads took me a while.
Yeah.
So I would beg and plead, give me a 7 a.m. pickup, please.
Right.
So,
Get that done early in the morning. Yeah. So okay, but speaking about that, you're talking about getting caffeine in. Yet you're talking about the physical part of it. What are some of the things that you like to do as far as fueling your body? Or do you have like a go-to meal? Do you have like some snacks that you typically hit on? How do you keep your body functioning to get out there and drive long periods, or to do that physical part of being out there securing the load and tarping?
okay. So caffeine's early in the morning. After that, you don't mess with it. Because after that, it's just water and Powerade. Because I try to avoid soda like the plague.
Right.
It's not healthy. Um, Usually, what I like to do, like food wise, since I don't have all the fancy stuff in my truck to be master chef, I like to get something that's not too god awful high on calories. So I might eat 2, maybe 3 times a day, but I do lower calorie meals. And go ahead.
Yeah, so just kind of eating it consistently instead of eating large meals with calories, just kind of spreading it out.
Yeah, and the reason why I cut the caffeine off as quick as I consume it is because if you don't, you won't sleep.
Right.
You'll be an insomniac.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's a little bit different. Sometimes people are real sensitive to calories, and the importance of getting that good night's sleep and being prepared for the next day. So sometimes you have to figure out for yourself, hey, when should I be cutting off that caffeine? When should I start, preparing that mindset for sleeping when the time comes? That's a good point there. Now, what are some of the, I guess, challenges that you would face? Not maybe not on a daily basis. That's kind of consistent when it comes to flatbed driving. Are there some things that are pretty routine, some pretty consistent challenges that you got to deal with on a regular basis?
So there are 4 things that you just can't plan for. Number one, shippers. How quick are they going to load you? How are they going to properly load you? Also traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, Most guys would argue that's why we started earlier in the day. Well, when you're driving through Oklahoma City trying to get to Guthrie and you can't, what do you do? Weather's another one. I mean, granted, you could watch the Weather Channel, but nothing's going to stop a chain law from coming in effect as you're driving.
Yeah.
Same with accidents. Can't plan for accidents either.
So you just got to deal with those type of things as they come.
Alternate routing is your best friend.
Yeah. So, kind of thinking towards maybe someone who's interested in trucking or thinking about becoming a driver or something along the lines of that. Do you have maybe some things that they should consider, or maybe some reasons why they should consider looking at trucking? Some, any kind of information or advice?
You're a paid tourist. That's
Good.
pretty much what it is. You're a paid tourist. And they have subcategories. If you're a guy that just doesn't want to work and you just want to bump docks, do drive in.
Yeah.
But you want to keep yourself in shape so that way you're not going to the chiropractor for DOT physicals, do flatbed or do LTL work.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone.
So, Braxton, for someone who's looking at this as a career, or maybe considering going to CDL school, becoming a trucker, uh, is there one thing outside of something that someone might see on a website, someone might hear from a recruiter? Is there one thing that you would really tell someone that you need to be considering this before starting that career?
Okay, that's that's an excellent question. Understand what you're signing up for. These guys that come out here, they don't realize what OTR really is. They think go somewhere, come back. Not every company is set up to push you out 1,200 miles and bring you home. So a lot of these guys don't read the print, and that's why turnover rates are as high as they are.
Yeah, that's a big part of it for sure. And that's something that I agree with. It's a message that I put out there all the time. Hey, do your due diligence, right? When I talk about due diligence, that's not having a conversation with someone like me or a recruiter at a company and them influencing you to take that job, right?
Right.
That's information. Now, what I want to do with that information is I want to go dig into it and I want to see what's real and what's not real. Right? I don't know if you had an opportunity to experience something like that in CDL school when you're looking at companies where maybe someone told you, hey, this is going to happen, or the pay is going to be like this, or something is going to be this way. But then once you got out there in this position, in the seat, doing the job, you realized, well, it's not quite working out the way they tell me it would. So I'm a big believer in doing your due diligence and research and deep diving, talking with other drivers. If I'm in CDL school, Braxton, I want to connect with you and I want to hear, hey, man, what's the cool things about your job and what's the sucky things about your job? And I want you to tell me everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's how I've always been. I'm very to the point. You know, and that's something to follow with here. When guys get out of training, it's the reality of the training wheels are off.
Yeah.
That's what scares them. Because now they don't have somebody looking over their shoulder. You got 5 layers of steel beams and everything just goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, again, the importance of relying on the support around you, whether it's the trainer that you connected with and built that relationship with, staying connected with safety, getting into those social media groups like an operational page where you can rely and take on the suggestions and guidance of other drivers, because it can be just like that right there. Like, oh,
Yeah.
all of a sudden I am doing this by myself out here on the road. So I can't stress the importance of relying on those around you.
And that's what I took advantage of right away was the operations page. And I actually made a few friends that way too. Now everybody sees me on the radio and they know who I am. It's
All right. So let's finish up. I always like to finish up with kind of I guess, a funny or silly type of question. But so back to, your career here. We're going to get ready to wrap things up. But I'm curious, you talked about doing those long hauls and spending, a couple of 8 weeks out on the road at a time, man, how do you stay entertained? Do you listen to podcasts, audiobooks, or you just jam out the music and sing? What do you do?
It really depends on just the day. Some days, if I'm just trying to get to a place, it's thrash metal the whole way, like
Yeah,
Metallica or Slayer or something. If I know I got several days and I know I'm a little ahead of schedule at that point, I'll, just have a podcast blaring through all the speakers.
yeah.
Or at that point, I'll just get on my CB radio and just tell people, hey, come on over, you're good.
Speaking of CB radio, any funny stories? Any you got a cool name? Tell us something about that.
So when I had just gotten my CB radio, I didn't realize how far they could really go.
Yeah,
I thought I was talking to the truck in front of me. I don't know if you'd call this funny. To me, it was interesting, but I said, "What's your 20?" He goes, "Oh, I'm in Oregon." And I'm all the way in North Carolina. I said, "How did this happen?"
yeah,
And I had a little Cobra 29 and I did some stuff to it. I let the guy at the shop talk me into a few things, new driver naivety. But I will never forget. And then he hits me with something that's probably a little unprofessional to say on the air.
yeah.
I shut my CB off and I didn't use it for 90 days.
Oh wow. Yeah, that is kind of crazy. I mean, that kind of distance, and you're talking to a completely different person in a completely different area. That's awesome. So, any opportunities that you came by to maybe meet someone that's famous, or maybe you went to a famous place? Any cool story like that to throw out?
So I actually was at a rest area in Iowa, about north of Des Moines. And this was just out of the blue. I was, I had just come out of the restroom and I see a real big man and he was wearing a Buffalo Bills jersey.
Yeah,
These two guys were. And I walked up, I said, Bills Mafia. And the guy goes, yeah, I am in the Bills Mafia. I'm like the fan club? Or he goes, no, I'm a player. And behold, it was Spencer Brown,
oh wow.
the tackle, number 79.
Yeah.
And I went, you and I have the same last name. Do you think somewhere on the family tree, if something happens, you can throw some green my way?
Put me in your will.
Right? And he just started laughing. He goes, that is kind of cool. We have the same last name. I said, yeah, but you're at better places than I am.
Yeah, at least financially.
It was a cool thing. It really was.
All right. So, one last question before we wrap this thing up. Uh, if you could think of a theme song that would fire up and play every time you started up your truck, what would you choose?
So this answer is specifically going out to my mother. Roll On Highway by Alabama. She says every time she goes to karaoke night, that's the song she starts with. Just to remind everybody in that little town of West Virginia that I'm a truck driver and I'm her son.
That's awesome.
So
Great
I,
choice.
I always start with that song in the morning.
Oh, awesome. Well, Braxton, man, I appreciate you joining us today. Learned a lot from you. I think some really good advice for someone who's looking to get into trucking, or maybe someone who's looking for what type of driving job they might have some interest in. Really good, valuable input, man. I appreciate it.
You're
We're
very
going to go
welcome.
ahead and wrap this up, man. We got a really, really good topic coming on the next episode. So looking forward to seeing you guys then. Have a great day.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.